so it's a standards. So it's whatever name of the faculty, and then underneath it says a standards professor of analytics. That's the extent. So the benefit for a standards is that every time that this faculty publishes a paper or makes presentation, any of that, under her or his name, then there is this extra title that says a standards professor of. That's the publicity, the marketing that a standards would get from that. But outside of that, there is not.
So they have no role in the research, the
No.
decisions on what to
No.
research?
No, not at all, not at all,
Okay.
yeah, no. Because that's part of the academic freedom that you don't wanna jeopardize.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. You were talking about the accreditation
Mhm.
issue. My question is, do you know which departments are lacking, like, I guess, the worst in showing assessment?
Yeah, we do. In fact, when you look at the full report, it identifies which programs, because these have to do with individual programs. So we do know which ones they are, and that's why what we have done is the provost has talked to the Senate. There's the committee of the Senate on academic quality, and that committee is in charge of that. And so they are working with the chairs of those program departments that have those programs, and they are trying to identify the path that they have to take for those assessments. But as I said, the beauty of this is that we have so many other programs around PSU, whether it's business, engineering, education, social, that are well accredited, which means they already know what is involved. So it's the matter of transferring those strategies and methodologies to those programs.
Which programs are they?
You can imagine, guess from the ones. To be honest, I don't know the ones specifically, but you can imagine the colleges and schools that I'm mentioning that have the assessments. Those that I'm not mentioning are the ones that have programs in them.
Just to clarify, where can that report be found that you're mentioning about, with the list of all these programs that have programs?
But that's something, if you reach out to the provost office, basically academic affairs, because all of those go to academic affairs.
I guess a follow-up question that's kind of interesting to me about accreditation problems is what happens to the legitimacy of people's degrees if a program loses accreditation while they're in the program versus after they graduate? What does that look like for a student?
So what happens is that they give you a warning, and during that period, which is 2 years, that you have, nothing impacts anybody's degrees or anything. What happens is that if you, during that 2 years, you have to put in place mechanisms for assessment of student learning outcomes, all of that, and then you present it to them, and they will see whether they are happy with that or they need to ask for modifications. And if they need modifications, they give you another period to make sure that you do those or implement those modifications. So it's not something that is going to impact anybody's degrees immediately. And believe me, we are on top of it, because the last thing you want is to impact both the reputation of PSU or the students' degree programs. But none of it is in any jeopardy of any type at this point.
Yeah, just to change directions a little bit. You mentioned we're kind of in the midst of a budget battle. The state has decided to flat fund the university, and I believe Kim and Neely, in addition to that, mentioned certain funds that were expected for renovation have also been delayed. And the January board meeting, you said that Science Building 1, quote, has all kinds of issues, and you look at how many students go through that building every hour. Does the fact that renovations have been delayed on Science Building 1 present any safety concerns for all the students and faculty that go through there?
So the safety concerns that we are really concerned about is, if God forbid the big earthquake that everybody's talking about happens. If that happens, there's a concern, yes. But right now, there's not.
So aside from seismic issues, there's yeah.
So, I just want to kind of follow up. Is this accreditation? I'm sorry to.
No, that's okay. That's
Is this
okay.
accreditation problem still related to the problems that were experienced in 2015?
The answer is yes. And what happened was that there was if you want to call it, a warning was given, and it should have been addressed, but I wasn't here, and nor was the provost, so neither of us know what happened, but it wasn't attended to. But I can assure you that both of us come from places that accreditation is on the top of the list. And so we are not gonna let this to be the case 2 years from now. That I can assure you.
But then just to further clarify, because that was, 4 years ago, maybe now? No. Well, 3.5 years ago that was a problem. And so that's longer than a 2-year warning period, obviously.
No,
but this current period, there's 2 years from now.
From
correct?
Now. Yep.
I was hoping maybe you could speak a little bit about progress on the Student Advisory Council. I know an application request went out, and it said the deadline is February 1st was the deadline. Does that mean we can expect to see regular meetings of the Student Advisory Council next term?
Well, I am still, yes, next term, yes. Because I wish we had done that already, but absolutely. And those meetings are important to me because it's one of the mechanisms that I am able to hear directly from my students.
And I understand that it was intended originally for fall and then winter. Do you have any reason for the delay, or what kind of opportunities do students have for input in the interim?
Yeah, so the two things. One was the key reason was simply because of the transition in my office, and now we have two individuals, both Teresa and Caitlin, very capable individuals, and they are trying to recover from all of the things that did not quite happen. So that was the primary reason for the delay. But I have had many students that have had any concerns that have reached out, and I have met with them. So that part has continued. As you know, I attend many events whether athletic or otherwise, and in many cases, the students come and talk with me, or they set up a time to come and visit with me in my office. So all of those have been going on. The beauty of those advisories is that it gives an opportunity for a group of students to hear each other's ideas and concerns at the same time that I'm hearing it from them, and that's what's missing.
You mentioned there's been some transition and some change since you've become president, and organizational reshuffle is also part of that.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned at a recent faculty senate meeting that an Oregonian reporter has requested a large number of public records related to the changes in the organizational structure of the university. Could you speak a little to what is being looked into and what questions are being asked?
So that's the part that I'm not really sure what they are looking for or what they specifically are asking. They have made a very broad public record request, and which that doesn't even come to me. It goes to our general counsel, and they are going to provide them. I believe it's by the end of next week. But yeah, I have not had the opportunity of talking with the reporter directly.
I know one of the passive inquiry involved Erin Flynn, a senior level administrator, who departed in the organizational reshuffle. Can you confirm that she was paid to sign a non-disclosure agreement with the university as part of her departure?
No, what happened was that, as you know, we closed that whole office as part of reorg of the graduate studies and research. So those responsibilities moved there. However, we wanted to provide opportunity for Erin to first of all finish the projects that she had, and also give her the opportunity to look for other professional opportunities. So it was along those lines that I agreed to. But she was still doing projects for PSU.
Could you speak to whether you attended a meeting in Bohemian Grove with Jordan Schnitzer traveling on his private jet? Did that occur?
That was the case, but that was during my vacation, and also I paid to Jordan for the cost of that trip.
So those were your personal funds that
my
were used
personal,
to finance that trip?
it was, I paid for it personally, and that was during my vacation days.
I have some questions to kind of go back to the events surrounding Margaret Healy. At our last press conference, you told me that you were planning on reaching out to the Washington family and meeting with them. Has that happened?
You know that we have not had the opportunity of directly communicating with them, but we have gone through the intermediaries that they have. It's what I call it. At least I feel they trust those individuals, and I have had a couple of more meetings with those folks and conveying our messages to the family. Yeah, but they have not yet provided me the opportunity of meeting with them face to face.
Have they given you a reason why they don't want to meet with you?
Mm.
So then, to kind of stay on that topic, we're talking about the Margolis Healy report What's the status of the OIR report?
OIR report, they have not completed to, don't wanna say I'm surprised, it's basically, they have been looking for the opportunity of finishing some of their interviews, and they have run into obstacles. And they are saying that we can write you a report without those interviews, but that means it's not gonna be complete. So it's in that stage. They are doing their last attempt to see whether or not they get to complete those interviews. But yeah, there has been a delay, unfortunately.
Have they given any time estimation about when they hope to have it
No,
done?
and we have been pressuring them. It's not that we have not, but
Mhm. Also had another. So do you think it's gonna snow this week?
Come on.
Well,
You're the same guy that asked about the Halloween costume, right?
I think I also asked about breakfast.
You're right.
I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure it was snowing a little bit earlier, but I don't know.
well, I can tell you, was it the day before yesterday? It was the day that I had my meeting with the ASPSU leadership, that I told them that, gosh, today I have seen the 4 seasons here. From nice and sunny to even we had ice and snow and rain, but I can tell you this, on my iPhone I have the weather forecast.
Mm-hmm.
When I wake up, the first thing I look is that, and before I go to bed, that's the last thing I look. The reason is I wanna know what's gonna happen here, because, and I can tell you why, is I know how hard it is both for students that commute, whether public transportation or their own transportation, and also staff, and especially if they have small children and they have to either arrange babysitting or schooling, all of those. That's why I am concerned, and I want to make sure if we have to delay, to let them know way in advance. Because I remember last year some of the staff came and said that, look, by the time we get the notice, we already have put our kid in babysitters, and so we are already paid for that. And so the other one, of course, is the safety.
Yeah, I guess kind of a follow-up to that, especially since you brought it up, is the complications of having children. Yeah, I mean, the most recent snow day that we had, I'm pretty sure PSU was the only school that wasn't affected by the snow,
Mm-hmm.
as far as any openings, closures, or delays. Is there any consideration or thought to perhaps move to a more consistent policy as far as not coordinating, because you don't know what the weather's going to do,
Yeah.
but having a more parallel approach to closures and delays with community colleges, with Portland Public Schools? Is that something that you guys have talked about?
So the quick answer is no, we have not. We cannot do it with the schools because you are talking about small children, and their consideration is different than college students. PCC, because they have multiple campuses on their locations, might be because, as you know, the weather here is so localized that what we do is we look at the forecast and we look at where the majority of our students and our staff and faculty are commuting from, And based on that, and we are in contact with the transportation department, all of those come to consideration before we make a decision whether we should close, delay, so forth. But just keeping in mind that given where we are, because none of the others are where we are, and we are blessed by having public transportation coming all the way to the campus, whereas let's say some of the campuses of PCC, they don't have that luxury. So it's hard to coordinate and say whatever they do or whatever we do, the other one should do.
What's the time, Teresa?
It's time. Oh, wow. Time flies when you have fun.
I guess, do you have time for a couple more?
If it is a quick question, I'm supposed to be on a call
Okay.
right at
Do you have
11:30,
anything else
so.
that you need?
I was just curious if there's any question about whether the school should remain open or closed. How is that decision made? Is that your call, or is there a group that
No,
makes
there's a
that
group,
determination?
no, there's a group, it's the, incident management team, IMT, and, that involves several people. And they, will assess and make the recommendation.
Maybe about that. Can you tell us like where the majority of students are commuting from?
That I don't know the answer now, but I'd be happy to provide it. But, yeah, I know that roughly about 3,000 are on campus. That's the ones who live in our
Like
buildings.
the student housing?
Yep, in our student house, yeah.
But I mean, yeah, it's still a little over 10% of the population.
Yep.
One question that I have that's,
Let's make this the last question. 'cause
Yeah.
the rest has to go to-
okay, one question is about, let's go with, zero tolerance on gun policy on campus.
Mhm.
So there's that incident with Lars Larson last fall. How is that policy enforced? Is there, because from my understanding is it's not really?
No, you know that's the policy, that it's not just PSU, it's the state requirement that on the university property, it has to be a concealed. If you are carrying any type of arm, it has to be concealed. And that's what we implement. And so it's not just PSU. Is that what you're asking?
Well, I mean, supposedly Portland State has a zero tolerance on guns, including concealed carry permits, unless there's given exceptions. So I'm hearing two very different things.
And I can tell you the Lars Larson thing, we actually said, no, you can't bring a firearm to the event that he was gonna have with the
Yeah.
college Republicans. And when he actually showed up on campus unannounced, he did so on his own volition. We did not
Yeah.
give him permission, so I think he went to Smith and
Yeah,
he did a little broadcast.
correct.
We had no idea, and then he left.
So, but was there any repercussions for him doing that?
I have to check on that, but we specifically told him at that time that he was not welcome on campus to bring his firearm.
Yeah, so I guess my curiosity would be what those repercussions for this individual are and how that was enforced. Or if not,
Right.
at that time, is
Sure.
there plans for enforcement of incidents like that in the future?
It's a good question. Let me
Sure.
do some research and get back to you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you all,
Appreciate your time.
appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, have a good weekend and hopefully it won't snow.
Well,